Welcome back inside the Raptors Today set. Now, some interesting things were said by head coach Darko Rajakovic when talking about Scottie Barnes. A great question asked by Eric Koreen, and we're going to break it down the other side. But first, let's hear what Darko had to say.
A lot of high lottery picks sort of just get the ball on day one and get to sink or swim and get a lot of reps. Scottie, because it's been a more competitive situation and he has so many good players on his team, he's had to do a bit of everything over time. As a coach now, seeing him as closer to what he's going to become, how good is that for you? How many options does it give for you in play calling?
It is good, but at the same time, it's a problem because he has so many traits, so many things that he can do on a high level. I always say, like, if you're really good at one thing in NBA, like, you're gonna find your contract. You're gonna survive in this league. If you're really good in two things, like, you're a heck of a player, potentially starter. If you're really good at three things, you're all star. If you think you're really good at four things, probably you're out of the league and playing in Europe. Like, you cannot be extremely good at everything, and that's a problem that I'm having with Scottie, because he's good at multiple things. We gotta find those two or three things that he's gonna really take the jump to the next level and become an all-star player, which I believe he is.
All right, so it looks like the media room resonated with the response from Coach Darko, but break it down. Exactly what is he saying in lay people's terms, Jonesy?
Well, it's when you're a coach, you always know who players number 1 and 2 are on your team, and you know who players 12 and 13 are on your team. If there's a guy that you think is 7 and he thinks he's 1, then you got a problem. And that's what Darko means. When you think you're good at 4 things, you're probably not good at any, and there's some perspectives that need to be looked at there, and you're going to be out of the league. But on the front end of the quote, you think about guys who are really good shooters, and they do one thing really good, and they're going to survive in the league. Think of how many guys there are. I think back in the early days of the Raptors, towards the end of his career, you put Del Curry on the floor.
Sharpshooter.
That was it. He wasn't going to stop anybody, but you put him in the corner, and all of a sudden you had driving lanes. Everybody was worried about him. Guys who are defenders. I mean,
3-and-D guys. That's the 2 things.
That's 2 things, right? So, and then you got guys who are good at 3 things that are
the
all-stars, right? Like you think about a LeBron James,
Paul George, Kawhi Leonard.
There
these
you go.
Guys, top tier.
So I love the way Darko put it, and it's about getting to kids as lottery picks when they come in and say, all right, we need you to do one thing right now. And then when that one thing is done, now we need you to do a second one. And I think of a guy like DeMar DeRozan that became an all-star, right? And he had one thing, then he had a second thing. He's had a job in the league for a long time.
Mid-range finisher.
And he's an all-star.
Yeah. So in direct reference now to Scottie Barnes, because it looked like Scottie could do a plethora of things, was it a matter of him taking something off the table, focusing less on something? Like, where does this quote directly reference in on Scottie?
I wonder if it's more of a reference to, like, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
So while you're kind of fiddling with your game in a number of different ways, you maybe can't hone in on the specific skill set that you need to and, like, dial in as much as you can. Okay, so I want to work on my handle. That's going to be the thing I work on the off season, right? We always hear, like, what's that one thing that you really honed in on? Okay, people are always going to get their shots up. Cool. Were you working on your footwork? Were you working on your handle? What were you working on? That's the one thing you're going to add to your repertoire. So to Eric's point about Scottie being asked to do a number of different things since the time that he's been here, maybe it's like, okay, well, we could pare that down a little bit because you have other people around you that can do the heavy lifting in certain facets. So for you, we're going to need A and B. Don't worry about C so much right now. That might come next year.
To me, though, I think it's important that you have that. Because I look at the way Scottie's shooting the ball this year. He obviously put the work in.
Improved.
Way more aggressive.
Period.
He's looking for that 3.
Exactly. And he's stepping into it with confidence and conviction. And now the rest of the league is going, oh, snap. He didn't have that before. Now we got to worry about that.
You can't sag,
right? So I can see where they might say, all right, we've got other people to do this, and we need you to do these specifics. But at the same time,
we need you to be a scorer.
If you're a complete player, and you're a basketball player, especially in this age of positionless basketball, your bag has to be full.
All right, and so with that in mind, knowing that the Toronto Raptors have had their struggles in the half court, great fast break team, right? They're one of the top 10 fast break teams in the league. The numbers when it comes to ball movement really speak well. But with all that said, the concern for this group is half court offense, Ash, and what can be done? Where is the room for improvement here?
Well, you got to knock down your outside shots. First of all, we were talking about that last time I was here. And I think if people like Scottie Barnes are going to be knocking it down, if OG's going to continue on his trajectory, if Gary Trent Jr. is going to come back from his injury, we're going to have that all well-rounded. Because all those people, except maybe for Gary to a certain degree, when they go downhill too, they're also lethal. But the one shortfall for this team right now, aside from shooting, because you can get an open shot, sometimes you're going to make it, sometimes you're going to miss it, they're foul shots. Have not been good either.
That's a great point.
And I'm sorry, I know it's nitpicking, but it's like
It's not.
you're the second worst team in the league from the line. So you're going to do all this hard work, maybe overcome some of your three-point or long-distance shooting struggles. You're going to get to the line because you got someone to bite. You ought to drive down. Maybe you dished and you couldn't finish, or you missed the and one, and you're leaving points on the floor. And when you're in these games where you're coming back from down 65, it feels like sometimes, and you're inching your way back in, those small pieces of momentum are a killer if you can't capitalize.
Anecdotally, you think about free throw shooting and their play-in tournament experience, where
Right.
lots of
against
points were left.
Chicago.
That was-
And you know, to Ashley's point, when you are coming back and you get to the line, those are the 2 points that are part of your quality trip to score, and then you trot down the other end to get a stop. It's draining when you do that, and then you have an empty trip because you miss free throws. Compound that with the Raptors they don't curry a lot of favor with the officials. They're not one of those teams that gets to the line a lot. They aren't. So when you get there, you better take advantage of it. I like the fact that they are able to get shots within their offense. The principles that they're using to get people's shots, those seem airtight
sound.
right now.
Yeah.
And if you're going to start making shots, you're going to be really good. So the other part of that is organically, get your backside in the gym and work on those shots.
Still waiting for Grady to hit his stride. Still waiting for a couple of the guys to show up from beyond the three-point line.
40%, right? If you're around 35 to 40%, just the average from the three-point line, I think you're going to be good.